Why there is no pre-instantiation for other than singleton scope spring beans. Why there is no pre-instantiation for other than singleton scope spring beans? Other than singleton scope spring beans. Tell me, guys. Yeah, now listen. If other than singleton scope beans are pre-instantiated and their object references are stored in what? Internal cache of IOC container, those objects will be wasted. Why? Because whenever you call ctx.getBean, one new object will be created or not. Okay. So the already created object during container startup will be wasted or not? The already created object during container startup will be purely wasted or not? Come on, guys. In that situation, it's really meaningless now, boss. It's really meaningless, right? Okay. The IOC container needs to create multiple objects for for non-singleton scope spring beans. Okay, based on the need. Based on the need was. Come on. Based on the need. Based on the need. So the object created for same bean, same spring beans during pre-instantiation will be wasted. Will be wasted. For this reason, so the objects created for the same spring beans during pre-instantiation will be wasted. For this reason, there is no pre-instantiation for singleton scope spring beans. There is no pre-instantiation for singleton scope spring beans. Non-singleton scope spring beans. Okay, 1 minute. Non-singleton scope spring beans. Understand my statement? The pre-instantiated singleton scope spring beans will be placed in the internal cache of IOC container, and they will be reused across the multiple requests. And they will be reused across the multiple requests. They will be reused across the multiple requests. Understanding my statement, boss? Okay. So that means the object created for singleton scope spring beans during the pre-instantiation process. Instantiation process are not wasted. Are not wasted. Come on. Are not wasted. So for this reason, only for singleton scope spring bean there is a pre-instantiation or not? Only for singleton scope spring bean there is a pre-instantiation or not? I want reply, boss. Convinced, my dear. Got the clarity, boss. Come on, everyone. Super. How to disable pre-instantiation on singleton scope spring beans. How to disable pre-instantiation on singleton scope spring beans. Are you with me, guys? That means the object created for singleton scope spring beans during instance provision are not wasted. Yeah, this is right now, boss. In second paragraph, why we need to disable? I don't want to change the scope, but I want to create the object on demand basis. Second paragraph, it's right. Second paragraph is all about singleton scope spring. First paragraph is all about non-singleton scope objects. Very simple. Non-singleton scope spring bean objects will be created multiple times as needed. So if objects created, if objects are also created through pre-instantiation process, they will be purely wasted. They become useless objects, right? But when it comes to singleton scope, object is created for only one time. It is kept in internal cache that will be used, reused again and again. So the objects, whatever created through pre-instantiation process, are wasted or not wasted? Definitely not wasted. Are wasted or not wasted? Definitely not wasted. How to disable pre-instantiation on singleton scope spring wheels? How to disable pre-instantiation? Tell me, answer. Answer. By enabling lazy instantiation on singleton scope spring beans. By enabling lazy instantiation on singleton scope spring beans. Either by using lazy init is equal to true or by using lazy annotation or by using lazy annotation. Okay, guys. Lazy is equal to true or by using lazy is equal to this one. Okay, now listen carefully. What is our workspace, guys? Switch workspace. Where is that? NTAJ616. Spring bean scopes, guys. Here is my S beans, guys. Here is singleton, guys. Lazy. Lazy true. Lazy true. Understanding my statement? Okay. I want single object, but that object should be created lazily. Please. I want single object, but the object should be created lazily on demand. Okay, if when you don't want singleton, someone is saying that, sir, you don't want pre-instantiation, then go for prototype. Prototype means multiple objects will be created, right? Prototype means multiple objects will be created. Suppose when lazy is true is not there, lazy true is not there, boss. You just comment everything. Just create a container. All singleton scope bins will be pre-instantiated. Wish message generator object is created. Come on. Wish message generator object is created. Though I am not calling ctx.getBin method, that means it is pre-instantiated or not. The moment container is created, singleton scope bin object is created or not. Because it's a singleton scope. Suppose you go for prototype, guys. Go for prototype. When I create container, any object is created, boss. No pre-instantiation for non-singleton scope spring beans, right? But what's the problem here? When you call ctx.getBean method twice, 2 times object is created. Thrice, 3 times object is created, right? I want single object. Now you look at this. Prototype scope, how many times objects are created, boss? Tell me how many objects are created? 2 objects are created because of prototype scope. Singleton. Singleton. Tell me, when container is created, any object will be created? No. When you call ctx.getBean, then only object will be created, right? But how many objects are created, guys? Only one object. 028, 028. Here is true. 028, 028. Here is true, right, boss? Convinced, boss? Yeah, tell me lazy instantiation for singleton scope. Okay, lazy instance. I want single object, but it has to be created on demand basis lazily. It has to be created on demand basis lazily. Understanding my statement? Okay. Use example, guys. In client application, guys. In client application. What is the output, boss? Yeah, the object for wish message generator will not be created because lazy instantiation is enabled. Is enabled on singleton scope wish message generator. Singleton scope wish message generator. Are you understanding my statement, guys? Super. Singleton scope wish message generator. Create objects at this place. Create the object for singleton scope. Wish message generator at this place. Creates the object for singleton scope wish message generator at this place. And will be placed in internal, all remaining things are same. Internal cache of IOC content. Internal cache of IOC content. So, internal cache of IOC content to reuse across the multiple ctx.getBean method accounts. Across the multiple ctx.getBean method accounts. Okay. Gives the same value now, boss. Gives the same value. Gives the same value, gives. Okay, guys. Now, if it is XML level, guys, what should I do? If it is XML level Spring Bean configuration, where should I enable it? Where should I enable it? Okay. Singleton Rababu, let us assume singleton. Here, what is the attribute we are having, guys? Lazy init is equal to 2. Lazy init is equal to 2. In XML driven configuration. In XML driven configuration. In XML driven configuration. Here is my lazy init is equal to 2. Lazy init is equal to. Cool, guys. Got the clarity, boss? Okay. So let it be, boss. What is need of that, I will tell. Shivakasula, I'll murder you. After listening entire Ramayana, you should not use Sita. Changing singleton to prototype. How many objects will be created for Spring Bean? For multiple ctx.getBean method calls, 2 objects. I want single object, but it should be created when you call ctx.getBean method. This indicates you are not at all listening the class. Everyone, please look at the chat box. Instead of writing new annotation at the rate lazy, changing scope is easy, Nasar. That means you are not listening class properly at all. Guys, is it the point? When I keep at the rate lazy, still scope is singleton. Still scope is singleton. When you call ctx.getBean for multiple times, still same object will be utilized, single object will be utilized, but object will not be created when container is started, right? Object will be created when you call ctx.getBean for the first time. Generally, pre-instantiation of singleton scope will take place when container is created, right, boss? But here object is created and that object is reused in what? Next ctx.getBean. Suppose if you go for prototype scope, guys, no pre-instantiation. Here one object, 2 objects. If you go for singleton with lazy instantiation, Here object will not be created. Here first object is created and that object is kept in internal cache of IOC container and that object is used in second one. That object is used in second one. Understanding my point? Mr. Shiva, still bulb is glowna, not glowna? Scope is singleton. Only at what time object is created for that spring bean matters. Earlier through pre-instantiation when container is created. When you enable lazy loading, lazy instantiation, unless until you call ctx.getBean method, object will not be created. Right, boss? Note, guys. There is no need of enabling lazy instantiation for. There is no need of enabling lazy instantiation for other than singleton scope spring beans because those scope spring beans will be naturally instantiated lazily in natural process. Are you understanding my statement? Will be instantiated lazily in natural process or by default. Lazily on demand basis by default. On demand basis by default. Lazily on demand basis by default. Because those scope spring beans will be instantiated lazily on demand basis. Okay, by default. I hope you understood my statement, guys. Super. Okay. There is one more question with respect to this, guys. I have 10 spring beans, but I want to see only 5 beans participating in pre-instantiation process. Can you tell me what should I do? This is tricky question. Can you tell me what should I do? What should I do? Can you tell me what should I do? Answer 1. Multiple answers are there. Tell me. What is answer 1? First one, keep 5 beans in singleton scope spring. Other 5 beans as what? Prototype scope beans. And make sure that prototype scope beans are not dependent to singleton scope spring beans. Make sure that prototype scope beans are not dependent to singleton scope spring beans. Yesterday I said, if prototype scope bean is dependent to singleton scope spring bean to support injection process, to complete injection process, somehow prototype scope bean also participates in what? pre-instantiation process. Won't become singleton, but it will participate in pre-instantiation process. It will participate in pre-instantiation process, right? Array, in certain function, only guests are allowed. But you are not a guest, but you are not a guest, but you want to attend that function. What should you do? What you should do? You should become employee hosting that guest or not. Employee or supplier or vendor supplying something to that function or not. Supplying something to that function or not. Are you understanding my statement, guys? Got the clarity, boss? Convinced, my dear? The same thing. What is first answer? Take 5 beans as singleton scope spring beans. And another 5 beans, spring beans as prototype scope spring beans. Spring beans. And make sure that prototype scope spring beans are not dependent to not dependent to what is that? Singleton scope spring beans. This is one answer. Or answer to. Or answer to. Can you tell me what is answer to, guys? Tell me answer to. Take all 10 spring beans as singleton scope spring beans. But make sure that on 5 beans, lazy instantiation is enabled. 5 beans, lazy instantiation is enabled. And make sure that these lazy instantiation enabled spring beans are not dependent to other 5 spring beans. Are not dependent to other 5 spring beans. Though you enable lazy instantiation, if it is a dependent to other singleton scope spring bean, which is not enabled with lazy instantiation to support injection process, lazy instantiation spring bean also participates in what? Injection or not? Lazy instantiation enabled spring bean also participates in what? Injection or not? Participates in pre-instantiation or not? Say something, my dear. Take 5 spring beans. Take all the 10 spring beans as the singleton scope spring beans. Okay. But enable lazy instantiation on 5 spring beans and make sure that these 5 spring beans are not dependent to other 5 singleton scope spring beans. Other singleton scope spring beans. Anything is your option, guys. Anything is option. Anything is okay. Either this combination, both will work out, guys. Both will work out. Pratusha B, why are you bringing factory method bean instantiation? Is nowhere related to factory method bean instantiation, Nayarna boss. Am I talking about singleton Java classes here? No. I'm talking about singleton scope spring beans. One, two people also talking about factory method. Factory method comes into picture when you make real singleton Java class as spring bean, right? But right now I'm not talking about that concept at all. I'm talking about simply 10 beans are there, but I'm interested to see pre-instantiation only on what? 5. In that situation, what to do? These are the two possible solutions. Okay, guys. When should I take my spring bean as singleton scope spring bean? Answer. My spring bean as singleton scope spring bean. Answer. If spring bean class is not having state or having only read-only state or having shareable state. Array state means data above. Shareable state. Okay, guys. When should I take spring bean as the prototype scope spring bean? Prototype scope spring bean. When should I take the spring bean as prototype scope spring bean? Okay. When should I take? When should I take? Tell me, guys, answer. Answer. Tell me. If spring bean class C is having non-shareable state, guys. What, guys? Every time state is different. Non-shareable state. Non-shareable state. That means the state will be changed. Object to object of spring bean. Spring bean. Okay. Then take its scope as while developing mini project you will get it. Okay. Take its scope as prototype scope as prototype scope. Right, boss. Use cases I will give at right time. I will give the use cases. Right, guys. What is the advantage of what is the advantage of pre-instantiation on singleton scope spring bean? Pre-instantiation of singleton scope spring bean. Singleton scope spring beans. Then take its scope as Yeah, tell me guys, what is the advantage of pre-instantiation of singleton scope Spring Bean? Okay, guys. Tell me. Look at this concept, guys. In web application or distributed application, guys. In web application and distributed application, the first request given to web application first participates in what, guys? First participates in what? IOC container creation. Okay. Loading of Spring Bean classes, instantiation, then utilization of the Spring Bean objects. Right, boss? So, whereas other than first request will participate directly utilization of Spring Bean objects. So the response time of first request is a bit more compared to other than first request, na boss? Is a bit more compared to other than first request, na boss? Come on. When, if pre-instantiation is not there, for singleton scope Spring Beans, right now, boss? Suppose pre-instantiation is there for singleton scope Spring Beans. Okay, and you also enable load on startup on the servlet. Recollect your servlet knowledge, guys. I deployed the web application. Tell me what happened. First servlet class object is created. Then container will be created. And all singleton scope beans will be pre-instantiated. Necessary injections are done. And objects are kept in internal cache, right? Okay, now I am giving first request. So when I give first request, instead of wasting time towards creating container, towards instantiating singleton scope Spring Beans, come on. They directly participate in utilization of Spring Bean or not. And other than first request also directly participates in what? Spring Bean utilization or not. So the response time of other than first request is equalized with first request or not. The response time of other than first request is equalized with first request or not. Is equalized with first request or not? I want reply. Is equalized with other than first request. What do you say, boss? Okay, now listen. If singleton scope beans are singleton scope Spring Beans are not having pre-instantiation support. Then the first request given to web application Spring based okay, performs okay, servlet loading, instantiation and initialization. Okay. Next one. IOC container creation. Next one. Okay. IOC container creation. Next one. Singleton scope Spring Bean class objects creation. Performing necessary injections on the spring beans. Necessary injections on the spring beans. Keeping singleton scope spring beans in the internal cache of IOC container. In the internal cache of IOC container. Okay, and etc. Okay, using the servlet comma JSP comma spring bean components for request process. Other than first request given to web application performs. Okay. Yeah. What is EA, guys? Using Servlet JSP Spring Bean component for request process. Due to this, what happens, guys? Due to this, the response time of first request is bit high compared to the response time of other than first request. Is a bit high compared to the response time of other than first request. Everyone getting my point, guys? Other than first request. Other than first request. To solve this problem, okay, enable load on startup. Enable load on startup. Enable pre-instantiation on servlet components and Spring Beans. Come on, guys. At least now bulb go na. At least bulb go na, boss. People asked me why. What is need of pre-instantiation? Why should I go for it? At least are you able to think? Okay. In the Spring-based web application, where pre-instantiation is enabled on Spring Beans and Servlet components, then operations during the deployment of the web application. Operations during the deployment of the web application. Okay. The web application or during the server startup. Or during the server start. During the server startup, guys. or during the server start. Have a look, guys. All these operations takes place during server startup now, boss. All these operations will happen during server startup. Okay. First request given to web application. First request given to web application. Okay. What happens? First request given to web application, guys. Using the servlet JSP components to process the request. Tell me. Other than first request given to web application. Other than first request given to web application. Other than first request given to web application. It also do the same thing now, boss. So ultimately what happened, guys? Ultimately what happened? The request time of the response time of first request is now same as other than first request response time now, boss, is now same as other than first request response time or not. Okay, now you understood what is the advantage of singleton scope Spring Bean. What is the advantage of pre-instantiation of singleton scope Spring Beans? So a lot of performance advantage will come with respect to first request or not. Here, the response time of first request is same as other than first request. Is same as other than first request. Enjoyed my statement, guys? Is same as other than first request. Super, guys. Okay, now I would like to talk about scope is equal to request. Yeah, I cannot show practicals of request session application WebSocket, guys. Why? Because they are related to web application. Right now, what I am developing is what? Standalone application. Sir, why are you stressing this much on Spring Beans, boss? Array, without asking question on Spring Beans, scopes. Without asking question on Spring Beans scope, your interview will not be completed. Difference between Bean Factory container, application context container. Different types of injections. Difference between IOC and dependency injection. These are very standard questions. And some discussions on Spring Bean life cycle. These are very, very standard questions in any interview. Got it, guys. Scope is equal to request or at the rate scope request. At the rate scope request. Type of design pattern which we have learned is which types are? Array factory design pattern is creational design pattern, na boss. Creational design pattern. Okay. Sir Vishnuvardhan, I also said the same thing, Ra Babu. You copy pasted from internet. Whatever you said, same thing I said. You just talked about Servlet. I talked about what? Servlet and Spring Beans both. Clear? Okay. Scope is equal to request. Yeah. This scope can be used only for spring beans of web applications. Web application. Nothing but Spring MVC, Spring MVC or Spring REST application. Array Spring REST for Spring Beans of web applications or distributed applications. Right. Spring MVC for web applications, guys. Spring REST for RESTful applications, RESTful web services, nothing but distributed application. Nothing but distributed applications. Next, guys. IOC container makes the servlet container to keep the Spring Bean class object. Spring Bean class object in request scope. That means as a request attribute value. As a request attribute value, which is specific to one request. Which is specific to one request. Which is specific to one request. Okay, where bean ID will be used as request attribute name and Spring Bean class object will be used as request attribute value. Will be used as request attribute value. Will be used as request attribute value. Are you getting my point, guys? Understanding my statement, guys? Come on. Request attribute value. Listen. @component @scope request public class. I'm just taking for knowledge sake. Wish message generator dot. Internally, what happens, you know, was okay. @component. What is the bean ID? WMG. What is the bean ID? WMG. Okay. Super. Request dot set attribute. Request dot set attribute. What is attribute name? WMG. What is the attribute value? Object of wish message generator class object. Wish message generator class object reference. Those you know servlet, they are aware of this, guys. Those you know servlet, they are aware of this, right? Request dot set attribute WMG wish message generator class object reference. Okay, guys. One per request. One per request. One per request. Array request scope, nothing else. REQ is nothing but request. REQ is nothing but request. I think those who study request attributes in servlet programming, JSP programming, request scope data means what? One per each request, right, boss? Super. Okay, you try. There's no wrong of trying now, boss. And you also feel the error, what error is coming. One per each request. It is a valid scope, guys, but in standalone application, we cannot feel it. Check it out. No scope registered for the scope name request. Why? Right now, this container is standalone container, is nowhere related to web application, is nowhere related to web application, guys. That's the reason. Okay. Create Spring Bean class object on one per each request. Each request basis. On one per each request basis. Superna boss. Yes, boss. At the rate scope session or scope is equal to session. Can you tell me? Anyone idea of session scope? Session scope. Array request scope. Bean class object itself stay data na boss. Bean class object itself data, right? This scope can be used. Can be used only in web applications and RESTful application. RESTful applications. Next, IOC container makes the servlet container to keep Spring Bean class object in HTTP session object as session attribute value nothing but one per browser software basis. One per browser software of each client machine basis. One per browser software of each client machine basis, specific to each browser software, guys. One per browser software of each client machine basis, boss. One per browser software of each client machine basis. Each client machine basis, boss. Convinced, my dear? Understanding my statement? Done, boss. Each client machine basis. Okay, everything same, guys. Let us assume. Say paste. Here I will take a session. Here I will take a session. Here I will take a session. Tell me. HTTP session SCS is equal to request dot get session of array create session object creates the session object in server on one per browser software of client machine basis. Client machine basis. Session dot set attribute WMG comma wish message generator class object reference. which message generator class object reference. Which message generator class object reference. Enjoyed, guys? Super. Okay. No. Today, don't worry about the use cases. Use cases, we need a setup. We need a setup for it, please. Okay. All these are web applications, guys. Right. Now here, what is there? Application. What is this? One per application scope means what, guys? One per web application. Not specific to each request, not specific to browser. Any number of requests, any number of browsers, but it is one per web application. It is one per web application, guys. At the rate scope application, scope is equal to application. If you give request from two different browser software of same client machine, two different session objects will be created. Two different session objects will be created. So two objects will be created. Right, boss. Now tell me. This scope is specific to web application, guys. This scope is specific to web application or RESTful applications. Next, IOC container makes the servlet container. Okay. To keep Spring Bean class object. No. Servlet context object. What, guys? Servlet context object as servlet context attribute value or application attribute value. Which is one per entire web application, irrespective of number of requests that are coming and irrespective of from which browser the requests are coming, from which browser software the requests are coming. Come on, guys. I hope you are able to read it. Irrespective of number of requests that are coming and irrespective of from which browser software those requests are coming. From which browser softwares those requests are coming. From which browser software those requests are coming. Are you understanding my statement, guys? Keeps. Okay. Spring Bean class object as application attribute having Bean ID as the attribute name and Spring Bean class object reference as the attribute value. Have a look, guys. Here is my application, boss. Here is my application. Super. Servlet context SC is equal to get ST servlet context of. Super. Tell me. SC dot add servlet. WMG. SC dot add servlet with WMG. Wish message generator object reference. Array, this is one per web application. Servlet context object is one per web application. Right, guys. What is the difference between Vijay Mohan? You are excited a lot. I'm going to rise that on only. Singleton scope and application scope in the web application. Tell me, guys, any guesses? Singleton scope only one object. Application scope only one object, right? Tell me. Both are looking same, na? But not same. Singleton scope is one object per bean ID with respect to each IOC container. One object per bean ID with respect to each IOC container. Application scope is what? One object per bean ID with respect to entire web application. Now listen, actual point you listen. In one web application, I created 3 IOC containers. In one web application, I created 3 IOC containers. 3 singleton scope objects will be created. 3 singleton scope objects will be created. But only one application scope object will be created. In one application, we can create n number of containers. We can create n number of containers. It's possible. Our IOC container is lightweight container. Na? Any number of objects we can create. Singleton scope means one object for Spring Bean per bean ID with respect to each IOC container. Each IOC containers. Application scope means one object for Spring Bean. Okay. Per bean ID with respect to entire web application. Okay, guys, entire web application. Tell me, guys, if we create NIOC containers in one web application, then N objects will be created for singleton scope Spring Bean. And only one object will be created for what is this? Application scope Spring Bean. Application scope Spring. Are you understanding my statement, guys? For application scope spring. Super. For application scope spring beans. Tell me. Singleton scope spring bean class object is kept in internal cache of IOC container. Okay, to make it reusable. Whereas, tell me, application scope, Spring Bean class object, application scope, Spring Bean class object, is kept in servlet context object to make it reusable. Make it reusable. Make it reusable. To make it reusable within the IOC. Within the IOC content. To make it reusable for entire web application. I think you got it. Bulb glow na, not glow na. If you know Servlet JSP, you will enjoy these discussions a lot. Otherwise, just focus on singleton and prototype. Most of the time, interviewer asks questions about singleton and prototype only. Most of the time, the interviewer asks questions about singleton and prototype scope only. Right, boss? Super. Right. Listen. Still one more scope is live. Okay. Arvind, at the end I will give summary na. Can't you control your state of mind? Mr. Arvind, one more scope is there. You forgot that. WebSocket scope is there, boss. They ask about annotations also. Deepak, at the rate scope is annotation only. I don't know. Right. One more scope is there. Then I will give single line points about every scope. Single line points about every scope. For some people, giving more knowledge also danger, Rabab. When I give more knowledge, they ask, can you simplify the answers? When I don't give more knowledge, sir, this information is also there in the internet. What should I do with you people, Rabab? You want depth knowledge or upar ka knowledge? What should I do? Tell me. Upar ka knowledge or ऊपर पढ़ा हूं और डेप्थ में पढ़ा हूं. Take one point na. You want depth? Then wait my order. Wait for my order. Right. Okay. Super guys. Vishnuvardhan, thanks for your realization. Yeah, lots of people think that singleton prototype for standalone, remaining for web application. No, singleton prototype can be used in web application and RESTful applications also. Okay. Yeah, depth only I will teach, guys. I know only that line. So then the Spring Bean Scopes is very important. I spent these many days means definitely interviewer ask questions on it. Fine. So what to teach, what not to teach, how to teach, you please leave it to me. You please leave it to me. Don't tell me how to teach. Don't tell me what to teach. Please leave that point to me. Trust my experience, trust my knowledge, trust my industry exposure, and at the same time, you're open to ask your demands. It's not like that. But don't decide the order, please. Thank you. Have a nice time. We'll meet tomorrow.